Okay, so good evening, everybody. It's good to be back with all of you. It's been a couple weeks, as I was saying. Tonight, I want to bring up one of my favorite topics to talk about, because I really believe in my whole heart, I really believe, and my experience has shown me this, that this one thing, if you really give yourself to it, if you really invest in it, if you really take the time, if you really develop the habits, if you really develop a practice, if you really develop the discipline, if you really develop the attitude that it's a priority in your life, if you really surrender to it, it can make really big things seem really small when things feel heavy and chaotic and challenging and uncertain and confusing or difficult or frustrating, or you're in comparison mode, or you feel like you're procrastinating, or you feel like you're stuck, or you feel like you're constantly fighting with your partner, or you feel like you're talking back to your children really easily, or you just don't feel like you're grounded, or you don't feel like you're settled, or you don't feel like you're clear, or you don't feel like you have any space, or you feel like maybe you're suffocating, or you feel like everything feels confusing, or you feel like you're spinning around a million miles, you feel like a chicken running around with your head cut off. And just drop a 1 in the chat box if ever in your life you have felt any of the things that I just described, just so I know that I'm on a call with a bunch of humans. Okay, Michelle says, of course not, no, never. We have one enlightened being on the call tonight, and just Michelle Stevens, just one enlightened being, right? Okay, so all of you are acknowledging that you're human, and what happens when we're human is we get born into a family, we get born into a society, we get born into a body, we get born into how we look, and then we're taught certain things by all the people in our world. And what are we taught? What are we taught? We're taught how we should think. We're taught how we should speak. We're taught how we should dress. We're taught how we should look. We're taught what kind of schools we should go to. We are taught what it means if we don't go to certain kinds of schools. We're taught how to make a living. We're taught how to raise the children that we decide to bring into the world. We're taught how we're supposed to be based on our parents' rule books, or our teachers' rule books, or our siblings' rule books. Drop a 2 in the chat box if you can relate to any of that I just said. And we spend most of our lives, and most people will spend all of their lives stuck in that program, stuck playing the same video, stuck playing the same tapes over and over and over again. And sometimes those tapes make us perfectionists. And sometimes those tapes make us think that we're not worthy of being anything other than what we were told what we are. And sometimes those tapes tell us that we don't deserve a loving relationship or a loving partnership. And sometimes those tapes tell us that, well, maybe I'm supposed to be in a toxic relationship or an abusive place, or maybe that's just the way life is, because that's what my parents said, that life is hard and life is scary and life can be challenging and money doesn't grow on trees and you have to work the rest of your life until the day you die, and life is painful and life is suffering. Drop a 3 in the chat box if you can relate to any of those things. Because we're human. Because we're human. And so then you look at a small percentage of the population that somehow, some way feels like you experience them as having more freedom. And I don't necessarily mean time freedom, although what we're going to talk about tonight can stretch the time freedom that you have, but there's more of a sense of personal freedom. How many of you have come across people in your life, drop a 4 in the chat box, you've come across people in your life and you look at them and you go, they just look so content. They seem at so much peace. They seem to have so much wisdom or so much knowledge or so much self-confidence. They just know who they are. They seem so grounded, so rooted. Even when things are chaotic around them, it just seems like they are floating through the chaos. They're just floating through the chaos. It's like watching birds at the beach when there's a huge storm coming. There's a huge storm coming, and what do all the humans do? The humans go, oh my God, get off the beach. We got to get off the beach. We got to get all of our stuff. Pack up the towels, pack up the food, pack up the Prosecco, pack up everything. Get the kids in the car. It's going to start raining and it's going to ruin our day. What a horrible afternoon. But what are the birds doing? Just floating. just swimming, just flying, just breathe, just being birds, just coasting through the storm. And why are they coasting through the storm? Because birds know who they are, and birds are equipped to just move through the storms. What birds don't have that humans have is humans have this thing that drives us absolutely mental, and it's our minds. And it's our mind that tells us that all of a sudden a little bit of rain ruins the day. It's our mind that tells us, oh, it's just so inconvenient that now there's sand that came onto the food. The mind tells us that, oh, this was my one day off, and of course, the rain and the storm had to come and ruin my day because the world hates me. But a bird would never think like that. A bird would never think like that. Because the bird doesn't have all of those programs creating a construct of how a bird's life is supposed to be. But what do humans have access to that birds don't have access to? We have access to imagination. We have access to unconscious conditioning. We have access to reprogramming who we are. See, just like a lion can't wake up in the morning and decide to be vegan, a bird can't wake up in the morning and not decide to also hunt for whatever type of food it hunts for. But a human can wake up in the morning and decide who I want to be from this point forward. That's what separates us from every other animal in the world, every other mammal, reptile, amphibian, every other conscious being. What separates us is that we have the ability to choose how we respond or how we react or how we see ourselves in any given moment. And in my opinion, that's one of the great paradoxes of being a human, because some days I wish I could be a bird. Some days I wish I could just be a lion or an owl or any other animal where I just wake up and I just do what birds or owls or lions do. But I'm not. I'm a human. And some days I wish I had that because I wouldn't have to deal with all of the complexities that go on inside my mind. Drop a 5 in the chat box if any of you can relate to that. Sometimes you just wonder, how do I shut this thing off? How do I do less thinking? How do I get out of this thing? Well, there's one way. There's one way. And it's a commitment to personal and spiritual development. That's it. Personal and spiritual development. Now, personal development and spiritual development are going to mean two different things for every single person on this call. And what I mean by that is how you choose to pursue those things is wonderful. In the world of personal development, there are thousands of books that we could recommend. I've posted in the team pages multiple times. Here are some of the best books you can read. Spiritual development, much more nuanced, much more intimate, much more sacred. And I'll invite you to explore your own journeys when it comes to that and what feels good for you, because it's different for everybody. But what I can promise you is this, is that when you focus on accelerating your personal and spiritual growth, at least somewhat alongside of your business development and the work that you put in every day, what I can assure you is that you will find the suffering far more fulfilling. And you will find the suffering far more acceptable, because what you'll be able to observe is who you're being in the process of the suffering. What am I attached to? What am I giving meaning to? What's the gift in this? Is there value in this? How can I learn from this? What is this really all about? Am I repeating an old history? Is this a pattern for me? Am I open to creating a pattern interrupt? How can I change my energy? How can I change my emotional state? Who can I talk to in this moment that can serve me and support me in moving myself forward? Or am I staying stuck? Am I staying in old patterns? Am I using my old coping mechanisms to hide from the things I don't want to feel, I don't want to look at, and I don't want to see? And what are some of those coping mechanisms? Alcohol, drugs, Netflix, television, stupid television, whatever it is. Now there's a time and place for all of those things. But if you're using those things to keep pushing down the things about yourself that you don't want to feel, you don't want to look at, and you don't want to experience, well, guess what? You can push them down for a while, but all you're doing is adding to the heat of the volcano within you that eventually will erupt. And how many of you, drop a 6 in the chat box, have had the experience, I know I have, where I push down, I push down, I push down, I push down, and all of a sudden life, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, said, time to erupt the volcano. Because I didn't want to look, and I didn't want to feel, and I didn't want to experience it. And I didn't want to take responsibility for the ways that I was contributing to the volcano that was about to erupt. And then who gets hurt? Who suffers the most when the volcano erupts? Yes, the people around us. Yes, our friends and family. Yes, our colleagues. Yes, our coworkers. But who suffers the most? I suffer the most. You suffer the most. We suffer the most. And the most painful part of all of it is we go and we look at it and we go, well, that was actually very avoidable. I really didn't have to experience that kind of pain. And why didn't I have to experience that kind of pain? Because I've been given resources. I've been shown different ways. I could have investigated myself in different ways. I could have responded differently. I could have reacted differently. But I didn't. And then what starts to happen is we beat ourselves up for not doing work that we could have done previously. And how valuable is that? It's not valuable at all. And so what I really want to, really want to encourage you to do is to understand that. Yes, the more you grow yourself, the more your business will grow. But really what's more important than that part of it, what's so much more important is how you'll feel along the way. Because here's what I can promise you. Even if you make all the money in the world, life is going to happen for you. Even if you can travel to every country you've ever wanted to travel to, you're going to experience pain. Even if you're walking on stage, giving big speeches, and obviously I'm projecting a little bit right now. Even if you have all of those experiences, guess what? Your heart's still going to break at times. You're going to feel sadness at times. However, when you are so invested into who you are versus who you've been, the foundation of what you fall onto, first of all, it's softer, but at the same time, it's stronger. Now, that seems like a weird counterintuitive thing to say. But what does that mean? Well, it's softer because when you work on yourself, when you fall and you fall hard, you land a lot softer because you've done the work to cushion yourself. You've done the work to say, it's okay that I'm sad right now. It's okay that I don't feel good right now. It's okay that I'm in fear right now. It's okay that I'm experiencing uncertainty because I have the experience to know what's on the other side of this because I've done the work last time around. And it's harder at the same time because that foundation is rock solid. What often happens, and you can observe this maybe in your own life or other people's lives that you've observed and paid attention to, is when they fall, it was a very, very soft floor made out of straw. And how do they fall? Further and further and further and deeper away from who they really are because they don't have that foundation. And so you just got to start to ask yourself, you don't have to, but I'd encourage you to start to ask yourself of what kind of life do I want to live? And again, I don't mean financially. I don't mean in terms of resources because those things will come as a byproduct with hard work and work on yourself. They come over time. But how do you want to be? How do you want people to know you? How do you want people to know you? When you're not in the room, how do they describe you? When you walk in the room, do they even need to introduce themselves to understand you and who you are? But right now, so many people walk into a room and, is my makeup okay? Is my hair okay? Is this shirt cool? Do you think they'll like my new shoes? I hope they see my watch. I hope they see how jacked I am right now. Because that's that mind. That's that mind. That's that mind selling us on a story of who we think we need to be to appeal to other people, the same people that conditioned us. But real greatness in the world, real fulfillment in the world is being able to walk into a room, no matter who you are, and just say, here I am. And when you can walk into a room with the feeling of here I am, guess what? Most people look at you and go, oh, shit. There they are. What are they doing? What are they reading? What are they thinking? God, they look like a bird in a storm. How can I have that confidence? How can I have that security? How can I have that belief in myself? How can I? And your mere presence begins to trigger those types of questions in other people. And that's more powerful than any question you could ever ask them. Think about what I just said for a moment. That your mere presence, when you walk into a space, knowing who you are, convicted in your beliefs, firm in your value, vulnerable, authentic, having integrity, being responsible, not being reactive, not living in comparison, not staying in comparison, not living in comparison mode, not staying stuck, not playing the victim, not being critical, not being judgmental, not feeling like it's your job to have an opinion on everybody else's life. When you start to remove those things from your life, you present in a way that forces people to ask questions about themselves. And there is no greater level of leadership and no greater level of influence than that way of being. None. None. So, coming back to the beginning, my wish for you, my encouragement for you is to invest profoundly, deeply, seriously, in a real way, into challenging the person that you were conditioned to become, so you can start to come into identity with who you truly are. Because that's the juice of life, and that's the game. That's the game. And the reality is, life being the game that it is, presents us with that opportunity. Do we want to stay as the player that we were born into? Or do we want to stretch ourselves to find out what else is possible in terms of who we can be? And personally, in my experience, stretching is far more enjoyable, even though it comes with challenges. Because remember, the short-term payoff of avoiding things is you don't feel anything. You just go through the motions. You're just not aware of it. You go to work, you tell the same jokes, you listen to the same stories. Drop a 7 in the chat box for those of you that are still friends with, and this isn't to say anything, they're not bad people, but those of you that are friends with, or maybe you've seen, people that you went to high school with or university with, and they're still telling the same stories, the same jokes, same shit, same stories, same jokes, same complaints about their partner, same complaints about their kids, same brags about their kids. It's all the same because there's no stretch. And when you're around those people, do you notice that that's frustrating for you? Oh, again? Again? But what they're doing is they're serving as your teacher. They're saying, hey, I'm here to be your teacher to remind you that I didn't stretch, and this is the result of not stretching. I didn't want to look, and so this is the result of not looking. I wanted to avoid, and so this is the result of avoiding. When you give yourself the space and take the time to clear your emotions and to start to understand yourself and to start to process information in new ways, you create self-awareness. And one of the most important things my mom taught me, and for those of you that don't know this, my mom is a very, very successful and wise psychotherapist. She's a shrink. But one of the most important things she ever taught me, she said, without self-awareness, without self-reflection, there can be no progress. Without self-awareness, without self-reflection, there can be no progress. If I don't take inventory of what I have or what I don't have, just like if I were a shopkeeper, one day I'm going to open up the store and there isn't going to be enough of what I require. Without self-reflection, without self-awareness, there can be no progress. So if you feel stuck, if you feel frustrated, if you're carrying anger, if you're carrying something about, in some way, shape, or form of feeling like you're a victim, if you're in comparison mode, if you're procrastinating, if you're complaining, if you're criticizing, if you're judging, not just other people, but of course yourself, then unless you're willing to look into those things, start slow at first, it's okay. But until you're willing to start chipping away, there will be no progress. Because even if you have success in the business, which you will, some of you will work your way to success, it will be empty success. It'll be empty. It'll be empty. And why will it be empty? Because you didn't take inventory. And the shelves in your store won't be stocked with what you require to feel good most of the time. You're not going to feel good all of the time. I'm not that coach that says that. That's bullshit. But you have the ability to create a life where you feel good most of the time. And if you can create a life where 90% of the time, 95% of the time, eventually 96, 97% of the time, you feel good, you feel really good about who you are, you feel good in your body, you feel good about the forgiveness, the compassion, the love, the gratitude, you feel good about the energy that you put into the world and the energy you receive in the world, that's a good life. That's a good life. That's a life that leaves it very, very, very difficult for there to be any kind of regret. So the one question I want to leave you with tonight is this, and I want to ask it in the first person because I want you to hear yourself asking it to you, which is this: how can I be of greater service to me? How can I be of greater service to me? You spend so much time thinking that it's your job, especially parents, or even children that are taking care of parents, or those of you that don't have children, but you feel like you're responsible to other people. You spend so much time serving everybody else, and you forget to just stop and ask, how can I be of greater service to me? How can I be of greater service to me? So with that, I'm going to hop off. I'm going to post in the groups, what did you learn? Hopefully you learned a bit from this call this evening, just paying forward a lot of what I've experienced in my life. For those of you that we'll see in Orlando, we'll see in Orlando. For those of you that we won't, hopefully we'll see you soon. But sending you so much love. Thanks for plugging in tonight, and we'll see you soon. Good night, everybody.